Hello one, hello all, it's the most sexy Freddy, ghost of them all, Casper in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Sharon Van Etten and the Attachment Theory, self-titled. Sharon Van Etten is a singer, songwriter, musician, and she has teamed up with the band Attachment Theory, and honestly, I could say that I've enjoyed her music in the past. I've never been head over heels from a project from her, but I can never say she's had a truly awful project. Her last LP, I did appreciate the sonic change, but honestly, it wasn't really blowing me away, but I didn't exactly hate it either. The thing with Sharon Van Etten is she has good albums. I could honestly say she's one of those artists where I don't have an album from her that I absolutely despise, that I think is trash, but I don't think she has any amazing records either. But that's not to say that I would shoo you away from listening to her. No, I do want you to listen to her. And I feel like her writing does express a feeling. It is expressive. The only problem is there are some tracks where the pacing could be pretty underwhelming. And to be honest, I do share the sentiment for the last 3 tracks here, where in terms of subject matter, she is definitely in the pocket lyrically. She is definitely in the pocket when it comes to the focus. The only problem is that the reverb, the overproduction, the saturation of reverb really brings the track down a few notches for me, honestly, and just leads me into this lull. But I do feel there are tracks where she has something profound and poignant to say, where the soundscape, where the sonic quality isn't sacrificed. And about the song Trouble, I do like the fat bass line, I do like the swirling synths, but I feel I enjoy it more in concept than in practice, mainly due to the fact how the reverb, there's something about this that just thins out the production. It doesn't really make it feel as full, and I feel like this is one of the tracks that does suffer in that respect. I get a way more gratifying result with the opener, Live Forever, where honestly this thing just culminates into a very climactic finish. Like, the building and the pacing really does pay off here. Like, I actually feel the bliss of the instrumentation here, and the thick bass really does create a foundation for the synths and the drums, and it's just fantastic. Nobody lives forever. And I feel like the song Southern Life does have some qualities to it I like, but the driving bass just does not compensate for how drowned out this song feels. Like, it's just an overkill of reverb, and the dissipating synth keys are just really drab. They don't really have that much color to them. I will say though, I don't think these songs are awful or anything like that. I just feel like they pale in comparison to the strongest tracks here. Like Sharon's vocals, yes, they are haunting, but I just wanted something more adventurous, something more stronger. But again, in something more atmospheric and something more building, I would say the opener and Something Ain't Right definitely scratches that itch, definitely more gratifying, and something I gravitate more to as well. The instrumentation is so cavernous, it's so massive, it's so immersive, it's so full. It really does make me feel like I'm getting a live experience here, even though this is recorded. But I feel like I'm really indulging in the live instrumentation here, and I feel like I'm being transported or having somewhat of an epiphany of being at like a 70s nightclub or something like that, at like one of the local clubs, and I'm just having this surreal moment here. Like, this psychedelic experience is just unfolding before me. And I would say they unfold for me even well when I get like the strong spotlit vocals that Sharon shows here. And there's also moments where they indulge more in quirk, melody. There's also moments here where they indulge in something that's my bread and butter, post-punk, with how quirky it is, how groovy it is, hitting you with a memorable hook and melody. We get these super colorful cycling synths, watery bass melodies and arpeggios, and the synth grooves make The bass feel like it's expanding. It's just something else. Like, honestly, I think I Can't Imagine Why You Feel This Way is truly her most disco and new wave track yet. It really does remind me of something off of like Talking Heads. And admittedly, I find myself wanting more tracks like this. Maybe not something as identical. I mean, I don't want the album to repeat itself, but something more in this vein, something more expansive of this style. Like, I just wish they would do something more and dive more deep into this genre. And INDIO is easily the most punchiest, most high-octane track here. And to be completely honest, one of my favorite tracks here, with its driving guitar line. The bass, the touches of distortion on the guitar bits are fantastic. The crashing cymbals really do create like an impact here. And I just love how chaotic this track sounds. And even though this track is very catchy, it's also very entrancing as well. It's very adrenaline pumping. It's a very exhilarating post-punk track, for sure, but there's something about it. It could be like the beeping distortion on the guitar tones that remind me of the Misfits' Die, 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 My Darling. I know that's kind of a stretch, but if you pay attention to the instrumentation and the detail they're putting here, I don't know, I really can't help but not hear that. It's just a dead ringer for me. And also the song dishes out some very defiant, very political lyrics here. At least that's what I'm getting from it, where she delineates the story of this woman who's been manipulated, abused, not to mention betrayed, had her innocence stripped away from her. And I feel like she's mirroring the colonial, disgusting actions of America. And INDIO, meaning indigenous, is supposed to replicate this woman. And yeah, I just feel like it's a very political, poetic moment here. And with everything going on now, with the colonialism going on now, it really does show a mirror of this country's darkest, disgusting, most disturbing history, and then showing the mirror, holding the mirror up to America. But honestly, again, that's what I'm getting from this. I do feel I'm getting that symbolism. But either way, this is definitely one of her most strongest tracks here, lyrically and also performance-wise too. The song Idiot Box is certainly another great song here. It has one of the most catchiest synth melodies and hooks here, really calling out the disgusting media brain rot going on, really calling out the media and its problematic ideological context. It has the blissful brightness of a Born in the USA sonically. I mean, I know that song goes into dark territory talking about Bruce Springsteen, but also kind of the darkness of Joy Division. And of course, I'm talking about the Unknown Pleasures era, which I feel isn't too foreign for Sharon. She's definitely gone down this route before, but I would say it's definitely more in depth in this vein. And instrumentally, I think this is probably her most standout track yet. And Something Is Right is probably the most hypnotic, but also very ominous track here. Hearing the dizzying synths, the shots of distorted guitars, the psych synths, and the Peter Hook-like bass melodies. Hearing the dizzying synths, the shots of distorted guitar, the Peter Hook-like bass line, it really creates a psychedelic, cathartic feel. And also, I think the group vocals go over really well and probably has one of the most climactic finishes on this whole record. Also, the guitar passages are killer. I will also say, too, that like they really do find fire in simplicity here. Honestly, I do enjoy a good chunk of this record. It has some very strong cuts here, some definitely very danceable cuts here. Also, definitely her most post-punk adjacent record yet. And I think the tracks that develop, there are some that develop nicely. I would even say they do better than the predecessor of this record. But that's not to say I don't think that the cavernous sounds and the presentation work against some of the tracks here. They unfortunately do. Where I think the vocals and instrumentation become really tedious to engage in. And I think Southern Way is a good example of that. Like, the vocals are so drowned out, they just bleed into the mix. it's really overpowered by the instrumentation, and I do think the instrumentation suffers as well. And there's Fading Beauty, which is the longest track here, but also the most underwhelming. Like, honestly, I think the development of the track leaves a lot to be desired. It really just takes us on a detour into these very washed out pianos, guitars, and it's just really boring to me, honestly. But I will say though, while the record is very reverb friendly, I think that this is her most tasteful use of it yet. And honestly, I think some of her best and most exciting songs land on this record. So while I'm not in love with this record, I do think it's a very solid one. And I do think contends well with Remind Me of Tomorrow. Also, I think this displays her best execution of post-punk and new wave, in my opinion. Even disco too. I'm feeling a 3.5 out of 5 on this record. If you've checked this out, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And that's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghost, Sharon Van Etten, in the Attachment Theory. Till we meet again.